Thanks a lot for being here. We have the entire Vanguard team with us here today. So thanks a lot, Bimal, Disha, and the rest of the team for taking the time out. The agenda for today is to guide all of the participants with a little bit of instructions on how to use the datasets from Vanguard and to answer any further questions that all of you might have, right? So we can keep the questions coming in on our Discord channel. I'll just ping project channel over there. Yeah, with that, over to you, Vimal. If you could share the GitHub and how to use the dataset and all the standard instructions for the projects, that would be great.
Sure. Thanks for that. So I'll start sharing my screen.
So, yeah.
Let me know when you see the screen, okay? Are you able to see
Okay.
the screen?
Yep. Yeah, we can see your Excel sheet.
Okay, so let me first walk through the data set. So do you see the GitHub now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I've created this GitHub. What you can do is you can clone this right into your local. My only recommendation is I've kept it public, but the thing is, once you start working, don't keep it public. Maybe just keep it private so that whatever you are developing, right, does not go. And when the submission comes, right, we'll basically let you know how to get it merged, right? We'll be creating a PR and help you get merged and everything. But for now, the best recommendation is if you want to work on this, create a clone of this, right, and work locally. Don't work on a public repo, right? That's my recommendation. So over here in the README, you will see the challenge overview that was already shared with everyone on this call. Contains the guidelines, it contains the task and the deliverables, right, and everything. So those things, right, when we shared, when we asked for participation, is there. Then there are three main folders, okay, over here. One is the data folder, one is miscellaneous, and one is the source. And I'll walk you through what these folders are doing. So the data folder contains the data. Okay. Now the data is in multiple formats. So if you go inside this, there is this one folder. So there are multiple formats. So one is like an Excel format, which I'll walk you through, which has the dictionary as well. Then if you want to use the full data set, right, that's also available, but it's available through what you call as a linear programming file, right? So if people have worked on a linear programming file, right, they know how to load the data. You can use that as well. Okay. It's like it uses Cplex. So you can use Cplex libraries to load that data if you want to use the full data. If you want to use, let's say, partial data around what we did, right? And I'll walk you through what we did is around 31 bonds. You can use that as well. Or if you have Gurobi, let's say if you have Gurobi installed within your machines and you want to load the data from Gurobi, you can use the Gurobi folder. Okay. So gurobi.lp file is also available. So there are three ways to load the data. One is Excel, right? Simply from the Excel. One is using the Cplex if you have Cplex, and one is using Gurobi if you have Gurobi. Okay. So there are three options available. Now let's look at the data itself, right? So the data itself, if you look over here, it's a lot called as the bond data. It's like the bond index data. And there are a lot of variables over here, right? And like you can define the objective function. We'll share the objective function based on how we define this, and I'll walk you through that. But there are a lot of variables. But if you go to dictionary, it explains what each variable is doing, right? What each field is doing and what its meaning is, right? So if in the dictionary, right, you should be able to find like the specific definition of each and every field that you need to use for this data. Primarily, you will mostly focus on the data related to the coupon rates, like the KRD, right? The distribution, the coupon rates, and primarily the variables, right? That we use, the external variables, which is related to this KRD that you see. So those are the primary things that you'll use. Now, this data is all around bond index spread, right? It tells you like, okay, which is the bond. So if you look over here, SNI, ISIN is the customer that is issuing that bond. The asset ID is the bond itself, and rest of them are the bond attributes. What is its rate, right? What is the currency of that bond? What is the spread of that bond, right? Or what is the current market price? What is its up? What is its down? Everything, right? The different variables that we use in the objective function. So it contains that, and all the details are available within the dictionary, right? But if you have specific question on any particular field, you can always ping us. So that's one thing. So once you basically are able to get to the data, right, you can also look at is what we did, right, internally at Vanguard. So if you basically look over here within this Visor folder, you will see several folders called miscellaneous and SRC. So if you go to miscellaneous, this is a walkthrough, right? If you click on this walkthrough, it tells what we did and how we basically solved this particular problem using Gurobi, using Cplex, and using IBM quantum computers, right? There is a walkthrough that talks about the different Qiskit patterns that we used, right down if you see, and what are the files that we use and how we use. So you can always replicate that, right? That is one way to do it. You can replicate what we were trying to do. And we have also highlighted the white papers that we have used over there. So that's one thing that you can try for. Second thing you can do is basically in the miscellaneous folder, you will also see the Qiskit Assistant demo. So it shows around like how exactly you to use the Qiskit Assistant. So Qiskit Assistant, right, if you have access to it, it allows you to generate code, right, like specific modules. And if you use it within, let's say, our framework over here, you can generate a lot of Qiskit code pre-generated. Like you don't need to write the code. If you are using Qiskit, right, it depends on what software or what SDK or what hardware provider you want to use, but we use Qiskit. So Qiskit pattern basically also tells you how you can generate code using Qiskit Assistant, right? Then another folder, if you see over here, is the SRC folder. That is our solutions, right? This SRC folder is the solution that we created. I don't want you to just copy it and basically recreate the solution that we created. But here, the experiment.py file, it contains the experiment that we ran, right? And we have listed all the code, we have listed all the packages and everything and how we did it. So this should give you the benchmark to compare against, right? Like this is the benchmark that I want you guys to focus on. Like if you run this experiment.py, you will get a certain benchmark saying these are the number of bonds, this is the time it took, and this is the what you call objective function output that we are getting. So based on that, you will get a benchmark to compare to. Apart from that, if you go inside SBO SRC, right, you will see a lot of other things that we did, right? Like we applied optimizer from Qiskit patterns. We applied several transpilations from Qiskit patterns. We basically changed the value of the transpilations and tried to basically get to other output. So you can experiment with all that. I don't know how many of you are very familiar with Qiskit, but there is a Qiskit Global Summer School also going on in parallel to this course. They are teaching all these things over there, right? What is Qiskit transpilation, how to use transpilers, how to transpile the problem, how to basically run certain what you call AI-driven transpilers, etc. So all these folders contains that, right? Like everything. And then in the problems folder, right, you will see the linear expressions, the quadratic objective function and everything. So we have already defined all this for you. You don't need to define, right? You simply need to import them. So you can simply go to this objective function, the quadratic objective function, import that package into your code module, right? It will load the data for you. It will define the objective function for you. And you simply can focus on basically the solutioning of it. Like how do I minimize this objective function? So those things are already defined for you within the problems folder. So you don't have to spend time defining the objective function. You are open to change the objective function and basically have your own objective function. And we are not restricting that. But if you want to basically quickly go to solutioning, all the functions have been defined, right? We have defined the linear constraints. We have defined the linear expressions. We have given you the optionals, right? If you want to use the optionals within your solutioning, we have created the quadratic constraints. We have created the quadratic expression. We have defined the objective function. So all that has been created for you. So I would say when you start, this is the first folder you should focus on and see how we have created this function. And if you want to replicate them or change them, simply you can start using them, right, by doing the import statement within it. Then the second thing over here is the optimizer, right? We have basically used local search. We have provided the local search optimizer that we used, how we used it. And then basically we have created a wrapper, right, for using IBM optimizer. So that is another thing that also put over here. And then the thing is the patterns, right? I told you, like we use Qiskit patterns to do this. All that is available within this folder. So you can look at the different Qiskit patterns that we used for solutioning, right? And then the last folder is basically the utils, the necessary libraries and everything. So all that has been provided to you. Also, we towards the end started using some constants within that objective function. So if you feel comfortable using constants within that objective function when you are trying to solve for it, go ahead and use it. But this is optional, right? You don't necessarily require this, and it has nothing to do with the objective functions that you saw within the problems folder, right? So you can directly start using that. Okay. So those are the main things, right, that you will find. So a lot of the things have already been set up for you. All you need to do is start basically defining your own code, right, and try to basically build a solution, right, the way we build a solution. And you can always find our solution, as I said, within the miscellaneous folder and benchmark it and compare to it. You can even reuse that code, right, from the solution that we created and build on top of it if you want, right, considering the timelines that you have. But the idea is that, right? So this is the overview that I wanted to give you guys, right, related to the data and the GitHub repository that we have created for you guys. If you have any questions, right, my team is there, right? If you have specific questions related to data, related to any file, related to the function, related to the progress you are making, feel free to reach out, right? And what we are also going to do is my team will create a Discord group, a small group, right, within Discord known as the Vanguard project. And within that, you can ask your question, right? And we'll be happy to answer them. All right. So yeah, that's it from my end. So Vardhan, back to you. And I'll share this link with you guys now.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, Bimal. Yeah, so this was very informative. I'll open the floor for any questions from the participants. As usual, you can put down the questions on the chat and I can take them one by one. Great. We'll also put this link on our Canvas page for the project, so everyone would have access beyond the Zoom meeting as well. Okay, I see a few people typing in the chat, so maybe give them a minute. Okay, so there's a question on the initial project description which was shared. So in the formula, the constraints the participants sees, okay, B up and then B low, but by definition only B up ij and B down ij. So which one is correct? Maybe it's better if yeah, we can go to that particular project description and I just share it. I'll just put that question in chat. Okay, yeah, so we should see the question in the chat now.
So they are pretty similar to each other, right? Definition, go with the definition. It's just that we change the nomenclature, right? The low and the down, right? I know like the IJ confusion is there, but what I would basically stick with is the definition, right? Which is the B up IJ and the B down IJ.
Okay, here's another
I think that
question.
there
How are
was
the weights?
confusion because I think we did not update that. Yeah, the second one is
Okay,
the correct.
the question is how are the weights in the rho j in the objective function?
So what do you mean by how are the weights? Like, can you clarify exactly what you mean by that?
So, yep. Okay, here's another question. I'll just put them in the chat.
Can you clarify the notation meaning of? So that is basically the change, right, in the coupon rate with respect to the variables, but you can ignore that constraint, right? We did not use that constraint. As you'll see in the objective function, right? It's there for you. It's part of the constants down, right? But it's not necessarily required. So if you don't want to use that, you can ignore it. But it's the change in the coupon rate with regards to the what you call the bond spread. The bond spread basically increases or decreases, the coupon rate also changes. So if you want to model that, that's an option.
Perfect. Okay, coming back to the previous question on the rho j and the objective function. The question was how are they defined and do they remain constant or are they dynamically adjusted?
No, they are not dynamic, they are constant, right? The objective function for this purpose is constant, right? That function that you see, that is the objective function that you are trying to build, right? And that's why there are no weights. That's why I asked, like, what do you mean by weights? Because we are not using, this is not dynamic, it doesn't change with weights. It's pretty constant. It's like you need to minimize, right? The idea here is I need to create a basket of bonds, right? I got this 108 bonds, right? Out of those 108 bonds, for example, if I have to create a basket of bonds, like 5 bonds, how do I minimize the cost of selling those bonds, right? Based on the constraints that you have. And how do I maximize the profit once I sell the bonds? So it's pretty similar to portfolio optimization, except that instead of the asset value, right? Here you're focusing on the bond constraints like bonds, coupon rate, bond spread, etc. That is what you're concentrating on. But it's very similar to asset optimization, where you're trying to maximize the returns at the same time minimizing the risk, right? So same thing applies over here. Here you are trying to minimize the cost of selling that bond.
The next question is, in terms of the final deliverables, what is the goal do we want to achieve? Is it the lowest objective function? And how would you access, how would you assess algorithms and solutions?
So that's what I said. Yes, we will assess it against the benchmark. So I have already given you the benchmark, right? The experiment that we ran. You should compare, right? What are you getting as output and compare it to the output that we got, right? And see how close it is to what we achieve, right? That will serve as the benchmark. So the idea here is the solution that is very basically either above our benchmark or very closer to our benchmark is the solution we'll select.
Great, thank you. Talking about the project deliverables, there was another statement in the project description, which talks about presenting and approaching demonstration of the prototype live. Can you clarify on what that demonstration means? Do they need to do some sort of an experiment, or do they want to walk through their notebook during the presentation?
That's what we are looking for, right? You can create a walkthrough file like we have done, saying like, okay, this is the step that we'll walk you through, solution that we created. But idea is showing the benchmark that you were able to get for the cost function, right? The output that you got and comparing it to our output and basically sharing your strategy. Like what did you do different from us to achieve that outcome? So that is the kind of walkthrough, right? I don't need slides. What I need is simple explanation, right? In the code, right? You can create a read.md file or you can create a simple MD file or write a document around that, right? But the whole outcome of this is we want to understand your approach. What approach you took that was different from our approach? How did you basically use the powers of quantum computers or like the quantum simulators to achieve that outcome? And number three, right? Like how unique is your solution compared to what is there, right? Those are the three aspects that we will be measuring on. And if it helps, right, what we will do, my team will share the rubric, right, that we use internally. So you can see what are the different parameters that we are going to access on.
Perfect. The next question Peter asks that, is the input of the model dynamic? Like, does the price change over time? And particularly, do we get a warm start with the bond basket and then adjust over time as the variables change? And I'll put the question in the chat as well as long. Yeah.
It does change over time, right? But for this purpose, for this particular assignment purpose, consider it constant, right? It does change. Yes, we do get a warm start with the bond, right? Basket over time, then adjust over time as the variable changes. Because let's say I created a basket today, but the coupon rate changed, or someone basically sold a bond on the open market, right? The rate changed. Then we have to adjust our basket. Yes, it happens, right? But for this purpose, the data that you have got is pretty static. So even if you don't include that right now, right, you can basically focus on that. And then what does the cash flow mean? So the cash flow is like once we created that basket, right? How much cash flow is that basket going to generate? Now that's a different what you call different way. That's basically different from the optimization function that you're trying to solve. But one of our objective, right, is to maximize the cash flow that we get from selling of that basket. So let's say I created a basket of 5 bonds, right? I minimize the cost of selling that bond, but at the same time, how am I maximizing the cash flow of selling that bond? So that is a different objective function which you don't necessarily require over here, maximizing the cash flow. So here the focus is minimizing the cost of selling that bond, right? But let's say if you want to take it forward, if you have bandwidth, right, you can even show like how you can maximize the cash flow at the same time minimizing this cost function. But that might be difficult to achieve in the given time frame. But I'll leave it to you.
Perfect. Okay, I think that's all the questions for now, but I still see some questions being typed in the chat. Okay, here's a question. Are cost function, objective function the same object?
Sorry, what?
Are cost function and objective function the same object?
Yes.
Okay. And another question is, where do the target A come from in real life in the objective function? What are the different factors that define them?
So that is one thing that I had asked one person to join, right? He's very closer to that. He unfortunately couldn't join, right? But whoever asked that question will get back to you because that is something that even I was not sure because this is coming from the business side, right? And that business folks were not available to join the call today. But I'll get this answered through them. So it's better they answer instead of me making an assumption.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Yeah, we have another question. Maybe I can take this one. Are we allowed to continue this research academic project even if we don't win? The answer is yes and no. Yes, in the sense that more than welcome to continue this research project, but no, in the sense that you cannot use any proprietary data which Vanguard has shared. You cannot use the same problem statement. So anything which has been shared by Vanguard as part of the project is only for this challenge purposes. You cannot go beyond.
I did it right and help that. I just. Okay, if no further questions, see, we are there to support you. We want to make sure like you get the best experience out of this. So any questions come up, right? Just ping us, right? You can ping Vardhan and Vardhan can reach out to us. But by over the next 2 days, we'll create a small group and let you know. See, this is the group where you can ask a question. Or maybe Vardhan, you can create one and just let us
Yep,
know, like
yep,
and make a my team
yep.
admin over there, and we'll monitor that channel, right? So that we can answer the questions directly within that channel. If we don't have the
Sure,
answers,
sure.
what I'll do is I'll connect with the business team, right, that has created this objective functions and everything and get you the detailed answers, right, if you need more support. But we are there to help, right? So because and we want to make sure like you get the best input so you can create the best output.
Sure, sure. No, that's really great. So what I'll do is, yeah, if there are any further questions, keep them coming in the chat. Both me and Varun monitor the questions at the time being and compile them and send it over to you, Vimal. And in a couple of days, we can add you onto Discord with specific channels where you can monitor the questions directly. So yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Yeah, maybe one last question. Yeah, are we supposed to run our algorithms on real quantum hardware?
If you can, that will be great, right? If not, you can use the simulators, right? That's why I sent the benchmark for the simulators as well, right? So you can use simulators. We are very much fine with that because we understand not everyone will have access to hardware within this short time frame. But if you do, you are more than welcome to do it.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, yeah, I think we can start wrapping up the session today for here. Thanks a lot, everyone. Yeah, please keep the questions coming. We are here to support you. So Discord is the best place for that. Put on all your questions and we can tackle them.